Hello, everyone, and welcome to Storytime with Miss Dymond. Today's episode is really story time for adults and parents. We are looking at the single most important thing you can do to raise happy, healthy, wholesome kids. So stay tuned. Welcome, everyone, to Storytime with Miss Dymond. In this episode, which is a little different, it's really a conversation with parents and adults out there where we are talking about some time-tested truths that are really effective for today's kids. And today's topic is, what is the single most effective thing you can do to raise some really awesome kids? So if there's just one thing, if there's only one thing that you can do that would make a huge difference in your kids and how they might turn out, well, that's what we're going to talk about today. Before we get started, please hit the subscribe button. If you are enjoying these videos and watching them and following them, please let me know that you appreciate them by clicking on the subscribe, and right next to that, hit the bell so that you will be notified whenever a new episode is ready for your review. All right, well, let's dive right into the topic of the single most effective thing you can do to raise some really awesome kids. In case you're watching for the first time and you don't know my backstory, I have three teenagers now. Well, actually, one just turned 20. So they are 20, 19, and 17. Two girls and one boy. Great kids, very wholesome, very well-rounded, very thoughtful, and really steered clear of trouble as I was raising them. And many of my friends and so many adults have commented through the years on their behavior, their success in school, their outlook on life. And there is somewhat of a science or philosophy to that I have. One of the reasons I put out story times is because I believe that when you instill these timeless truths into kids from an early age, it will be something that they can come back to. Obviously, a value system or like a measuring stick that they can monitor their choices by. What I found to be the single most important thing that I can do to help them become happy, healthy, wholesome kids is this. I realize that kids really look for an example to follow. And they do this naturally. When they first come into this world, they simply watch and take in a ton of information. And it happens on all levels. It happens in their body. It happens in their mental space. It happens in their emotions. It happens everywhere. They are just taking it all in. They're not just watching everything that happens, but they're hearing. They're hearing your voices. They're hearing the tone of voices. Is the child hearing arguing, fussing, fighting, stressful noises all the time? Or are they hearing your loving, sweet, kind, gentle voice? Are they hearing their name whispered in wonderful ways? Are they seeing smiles? Are they seeing frowns? And literally, that is imprinting onto the child's conscious and subconscious the environment around them. Even that information is stamping them so that they will know how to fit in or imitate that which they are absorbing. So, however the adults are in their life, which is usually the parents or whoever the primary caregivers are, the temperament of the adults, the example of the adults is really going to be what affects that child the most. Whoever they are around the most, spend the most amount of time with, that is going to really produce the blueprint for that child growing up. Children depend on and trust the adults in their lives to shape their view of the world and to create a safe space for them in the world. What does that look like? That looks like when I cry, someone is going to come in and hold me and pick me up. Someone is going to change me. Someone is going to feed me. I can trust. I can trust this environment. And from the earliest of ages, psychologists will tell us that this is where the learning begins. If I cry and cry and cry for hours and no one tends to my needs, that may develop behaviors that tell me I am not worthy, or I am not loved, or no one is going to be there for me. Learning that at an early age will really affect the behaviors of the child. And I remember I was taking in college a child development class, and they said that between the ages of newborn and about 6 years old is where most of their information about relating to the outside world occurs. Isn't that amazing? I mean, before they even start school for most of them, most of their learning is already imprinted, meaning that blueprint is already there in a child's mind for life. And it's the simple things that we may not even be consciously thinking about. What they're taking in their environment, the tones, the way they're held. Are they held securely? Do they feel firm and they're just closing their eyes while they're taking a bottle, for example? Or is it rushed and hurried and kind of thrown in, not literally thrown, but thrown in the bassinet or the cribs so you can run off to somewhere else? They feel that. They feel all of that energy. They are very aware of their environment. So providing from the earliest of ages, when they first enter into the world, providing that firm hug, that cradling, that eye contact, those smiles means so much to a child, to let them know, hello, you're here, you're welcomed, you're loved, I want you, I care for you. That nurture is so important. And then as they grow up, of course, they are continuing to look for that nurture, that love, that development in other ways. So the easiest way and the single most thing that I believe anyone can do to help kids become healthy, happy, and wholesome and really contribute in a positive way to society is to be the person that you want your kids to be. In other words, you have to be a great shining example, because everything you say, do, and even the ways you feel, the emotions that you put out, you may think I'm not saying anything, but they pick up on feelings. Everything you model to that child, you are providing them a blueprint for what life is like. You know that when you go home and you talk to, let's say, a spouse or a friend or a sibling, whomever it may be at home, you can tell when they've had a really bad day. They don't have to say a word. It'll just be something about their face, something about their body language. It'll be tight, it'll be tense. You'll know, somebody had a bad day. Like, or what's wrong with you, you may even say, walking into the room. Well, just like we pick up on that, kids pick up on that even more than we do, because they're wired to understand their environment in this way. Okay, so let's move on from that. I think I hopped on that enough. Whatever they see you do becomes their marker for good behavior. Whatever you do. So if your house is clean, then this is good behavior. We keep the house clean. If we drive fast, honk our horns all the time, and curse at the drivers in front of us, cut people off in traffic, that's how they're going to drive more than likely. Even if driving school tells them something different, because they've seen it, they've learned it. And the type of learning that goes deep down in the subconscious is really the learning that children take in even without thinking about it. So if they're in the car with you for 15 years and this is how you drive, then they will pick up on those driving traits. It doesn't matter how many driving schools they go to, this is what their blueprint is going to be. We honk at drivers, we are impatient, we cut people off because they've been in the car and observed you doing it. So going back to another premise that I skipped over and I want to make sure I pointed out. Children generally believe that whatever their parents do is right. That's innate in them for survival. They need their parents to survive. So they automatically feel that if my parents are doing this, if my guardians or caretakers are doing this, this is what it is. This is what I am supposed to do. I'm supposed to follow in that pattern. It's nothing that you have to tell them, they will automatically know. So if mom does it, then it's okay. If dad does it, it's okay. If Aunt Cheryl does it, who always comes over on the weekends, mom and dad love Aunt Cheryl, then it's okay. So we really have to be careful about the environment that we allow our children to be around, the people we allow in their lives on a regular basis, because they will glean, they will pick up, it will just be infused in them unconsciously. So that's the first thing. Um, the behavior of the adults is their marker for good behavior. Secondly, I've already alluded to this, your life is their blueprint. Not that they're going to be exactly as you are, that's not generally going to happen, even when you name them junior or the third. Kids are their own people. But what I mean is that you set the tone for the rest of their lives. And that's in everything. You want them to clean their room every Saturday? That used to be one of my rooms. Every Saturday, before you go out and have fun, clean your room. Well, is the house clean? Does the house ever get clean? Because if the house is not getting clean, they have no logic as to why their room should be clean, other than you tell them to do it. And when you tell them to do it, they'll do it perhaps out of fear or because they want something. But when you show them by example, then they'll understand that this is the right thing to do. This is the way we live. This is the right way to live, because they see you doing it by example. And remember, they're already wired to think, whatever I see mom and dad doing, this is good. And that wiring is innate for survival. Because if they think you're bad, but inwardly children are wired to be good, to want to please, then that's an internal conflict. So they're not wired that way. They're wired to believe that they are good and that they follow the good example of their parents. They watch you all of your life, so it's normal for them to emulate you. Even if they steer off the road a little bit, generally speaking, they come back, especially if you've laid a constant and consistent blueprint for them. Now, if they haven't had constancy in their lives, they've always had different scenarios, then their choices may also be erratic. They may want to choose this and choose this and choose this and try this, because growing up, that is the blueprint they had. We lived here for a while, then we moved here, and then we did this, and there was this job, and then parent had this job, and then parent had this job. So they learn choices, they learn variety. Whatever it is that they experience, more than likely they imitate. So if we understand this, and then it's easy to understand that the easiest way to be a great parent is to be that great example. The problem with this is that it's just not something you can turn on and turn off. Kids are watching all the time, not just when you think they're watching. So it really is a sacrifice for us, because it is a lifelong process. Definitely through the ages of, till the age of about, I would say 25 or so, as long as they're in your household, however long that is. My kids are in college, so they'll probably be back until about 21 or 22. But as long as they're in your house, then that generally is the way it works. So let me give you an example of this. Something I had to really come to grips with is the fact that children are watching all the time, and children are watching you now. And when you say, let's say someone has a bad habit, like smoking, for example. I think most of us would agree smoking is a bad habit. Let's say I, as a mother, am a smoker. I'm not, but just as an example. When I tell my child, honey, don't smoke. You don't want to do this. You don't want to have this habit like mommy has. Don't smoke. You think she's going to believe that? No. She's going to look at me. She's going to say, Mommy smokes. Mommy's good. I can smoke. I'm good. They're not going to believe what you say because they're going to watch and imitate what you do. Period. So it's everyone's decision as to how much of a sacrifice you want to make for your kids to turn out as awesome as they can be, or you doing your part to provide the best example you can be. Because they just don't do what you say, they do what you do. I remember at the earliest age, maybe 4, was definitely preschool age. My daughter used to love heels. She would go in my closet, maybe it was a little bit older, 5 or so. She would go in my closet and get my high heel shoes. And she would prance around the house, or try to, in my heels. And I would say, take them off. I didn't want her to break my 5-inch stilettos trying to wear them around the house. And I said, well, you can wear these heels when you get older. And she would say, quite naturally to her, I want to wear them now. They don't understand delay. They don't understand you can smoke when you get 21, or you can, decide to do recreational drugs when you get to college. If you're doing it now and in front of them, they're like, you're doing it, you're okay, I can do it, I'll be okay. And that really is the message you're giving. So I think when she turned 6 or so, I got her the cutest little pair of black patent leather shoes, and they had about a 1-inch heel, and oh my gosh, I think I saved those shoes. She would prance around the house in those heels, and she just knew she was something. But I just share that to say that whatever they see you doing, they feel that they can do it now. And that whole time delay really does not translate well to them. I've never seen that translate well. You saying, I can do this now, but you have to wait until you're my age. No, they just say, if it's good for you, it's good for me. If it's good for my dad, it's good for me. If he's doing that behavior, I can do that behavior. So that's really something to be conscious of, what you're modeling. And you're modeling everything. Whether you think they see it or not, you're modeling it. So the other thing I want to mention, how much of your mistakes do you share? Because if this is true, what's been said so far in this video, you want to model good behavior, the best behavior, because they're going to see it, absorb it, and imitate it. Do you tell your kids about your mistakes? And that can be a question, because some parents may feel like, well, I want them to know what I did, or I want them to be able to relate to me. It's more so I want them to be able to relate to me. Because oftentimes kids will say something like, oh, it's so different now, or it wasn't like it is now back in your day, back in the Stone Age, and before, TVs or what have you. So I do get that question, and here's the best advice that I can tell you. Oftentimes, kids will challenge you regarding your parenting of them, or ask you questions. When I say challenge, they may say something like, oh, well, you don't know what it's like now. You don't know what it's like being a teen today, or they didn't have X, Y temptation in your day. And you want to come back and defend that. But what it's really about is helping them decide the decision that they need to make in the moment. So if a child, let's say you caught a child smoking some illegal substance, and they say, well, you don't know what it's like. Everybody at my school does it. And you say, yes, I do. I did XYZ at such and such an age. Is that wise? Because now you've just given your child a blueprint. Mom did it, or whoever's talking to them. Mom did it. Mom's good, then I can do it. I'll be good too. I'll be fine. If mom made this mistake and survived and turned out good, then so can I. So what psychologists actually suggest is that you question them more and just converse with them more and just sidestep answering that question directly, because what they're really looking for is advice for today. So if they say, well, have you ever smoked? They're really looking for, what should I do now with my friends and this peer pressure that I have to smoke? So you may want to tell them something like, or really ask the question, are you receiving peer pressure to smoke? Do your friends smoke? Who smokes? Have you been offered something before? You want to continue to find out more about why they're asking you that question, and then provide some guidance for them as to what they can do now. So you may want to tell them, smoking is harmful. In our family, we have a history of lung cancer. We have a couple of relatives that smoked heavily. It certainly doesn't do anything good for you. X, Y, and Z. It becomes addictive, on and on and on. But when you say, I smoke cigarettes, but you shouldn't, because they don't hear that really. That goes back to, you can't as a parent expect them to do as you say, but not as you do. Even if what you do was in the past, they are more likely to imitate that. So instead of answering directly, psychologists suggest that you deflect their questions about your behavior back to them. Why do you ask? What's going on at school? What are they doing? What about your best friends? Their question is a cue to you that something is bothering them, or they are trying to make a choice about something. So you really want to focus on them and the choices that they are about to make, or perhaps have made, and make it less about you. You really want to just flip that focus right back to them. Help sympathize with the peer pressure that they're going through, and give them some good positive guidelines and behavior that they can imitate. So honestly, this might not work very well if you tell them, no, son, don't smoke, but you smoke. Or no, you should stay away from this, but you're doing it. So that's something you have to work out. But just to let you know, psychologists do say when kids ask you those direct questions, it's actually better to focus on them and try your best to keep modeling and steering them in the right direction that you want them to go into, and away from risky behaviors. Some parents might say, well, I want to be honest with my child. I want him or her to learn from me, that we can be open and share everything. And again, psychologists say that thinking is a fallacy, because they don't learn from your mistakes. Kids don't learn from your mistakes. You know why? Because that was your experience. You learn from your mistakes, but it wasn't their mistakes, so they're not going to learn from that. And just because you said it doesn't mean that just because you say don't do it, the chance is actually likely that if you tell them you did it, then they'll follow suit. So just continue to share with them examples about what's best for their behavior at this point. What's best for them. Avoid risky behaviors. Less chance of you becoming addictive or developing into problems. And maybe share with them an example of where you did overcome peer pressure and how that benefited from you. Share those examples that you want them to follow. All right. So what we want is to help our children formulate healthy values, use good judgment, and apply wisdom in their lives to be the very best version of themselves. So the answer to the question that we asked at the very beginning, what is the single most important thing you can do to help raise happy, healthy, wholesome children? Is to be the very best example to them that you can be. Ooh, I feel like that was a lot. Maybe that was a lot. So thank you so much if you stuck with me to the very end. Remember to hit subscribe. Click on the notification bell, which is usually right next to the subscribe button, so you'll be notified of more of these parenting tips and tricks episodes. Please leave a comment. Let me know your thoughts and if there are any other topics you would like for us to dive into. Thanks so much. Big virtual hug to all you parents out there. I know we do the very best job that we can do. Keep it up. And I'll see you next time on the next episode of Storytime with adults and parents and kids. Who knows? Bye-bye.